Okay guys, welcome to the final Market Revolution video. Do you like my new headphones? They are purple. My daughter said she had to have my other ones for her real school, her real online homeschooling, so I get stuck with hers. I think they're great. I think they do wonders for my eyes. Anyway, Market Revolution Part 3. Today we're going to look at, or this video, we are going to look at the political consequences of the market revolution. This is also kind of how the era of good feelings collapses. Now, much of this first part should be a review. Hopefully, if you've been following along in class, this is not new information. But just as a review, remember that the Republican Party, Thomas Jefferson's party, the Democratic Republicans, were a pro-farmer, anti-merchant policy. Oh, let me turn off my air conditioning. Whew, that helped. They were a pro-farmer, anti-merchant political party, and you can see this very clearly in their policies, right? When England was impressing American sailors, meaning they were capturing American sailors and forcing them to become British sailors, Thomas Jefferson, who got his political education, I guess you could say, during the American Revolution, right, did a boycott. That's exactly what we did during the American Revolution. We did boycotts, and it worked then. Heck, why not work now? So that's what we did. We did a boycott, a trade embargo for England. Unfortunately, though, for the other half of America, the Americans that live in the Northeast, their main job was merchant activity. And what a merchant did was they went to England with a boat and filled it up with stuff and brought it to America and sold it, sometimes directly off their boat. So this is the federal government telling a whole section of the country what you do for a living is now illegal. That kind of rings true in a way. If you're working in the restaurant industry right now or the retail industry right now, that rings true in a way that it didn't 2 weeks ago. So that's what the federal government did leading up to the War of 1812. They started that in 1808, continued that policy into the War of 1812. The War of 1812 was against Great Britain, right? So it was against that same country that the New England merchants get all of their supplies from. So that was a big damaging moment for them. And so in the middle of that war, you could understand that the Federalists, those political party that's based out of the North, that most of them were merchants, most of them were devastated by both the trade embargo and by the War of 1812 itself. They've had enough. They're sick of this. And so in 1814, halfway through the war, they met in secret at the Hartford Convention and they threatened to secede from the Union. This gets out, everybody finds out about it, and it will lead to the demise of the Federalist Party. And so we have only one game in town, right? There's just one political party. We're all Republicans. This is the era of good feelings, right? Now, what that means politically, also, by the way, at the same time, there's one of the consequences of the good feelings everyone's feeling is everyone's feeling particularly democratic. Now that we're all in the same political party, no one's afraid of voting. So let's get more and more people voting. And we have universal manhood suffrage, meaning that all white males are able to vote. It started in Maryland and expanded to the rest of the states that all white males could vote. And so that leads us to the election of 1824. Now, during a typical American election, you have two people on the ballot, right? You have the Democratic candidate and you have the Republican candidate. Well, in 1824, we're all Republicans. So it works much more like a primary than it does a typical election where you have several people running and they're all from the same political party. So we have all of these guys running for president. We have William Crawford. We have John Quincy Adams. Henry Clay. Remember, I hoped you will get to know Henry Clay more and more as these classes progress. And then John C. Calhoun. And then the war hero from the War of 1812, you have Andrew Jackson. All right, so you have all of these guys running for president, and all of them are going to get some form of electoral college votes. Crawford is going to get 41. Adams is going to get 84. Henry Clay gets 37. John C. Calhoun does not get very many at all, so he drops out. And Andrew Jackson gets 99. Now, who do you guess wins? You would guess Andrew Jackson, right? That he's got the most votes, so he should win. But 99 votes does not get him the election. There's a joke in there somewhere about 99 something, but I can't quite find it. So he does not win the election. Because the Constitution says that it's not he with the most votes, it's he with a majority, or she with the majority, of electoral college votes. So if you add up 41, 84, and 37, you get more than 99. So during this time, the election, which is stuck because there's no clear winner, went to the House of Representatives. It went to the House because the House was considered the people's branch of government right now. Remember, the House of Representatives was the only of the three branches of government that was completely elected by the people. So it went to the House. Henry Clay, our good friend, just happened to be the Speaker of the House, meaning he's in charge of the House of Representatives. So he does a deal. Now, full disclosure, he denies this. The person he does the deal with denies this, but we're pretty sure this is what happened. The deal is this. Okay, so Clay can't be president because he does have the least amount of votes, and that would just look bad if he suddenly got the presidency, right? So that'd be too obvious. So he goes to John Quincy Adams and says this: listen, I'll let you be president. I'll give you my votes. I'll give you Crawford's votes if you let me be the Secretary of State. There was a pattern of if the one person was the Secretary of State, when the presidency cycled back around, they got to be president. It worked for several people in a row. Thomas Jefferson was George Washington's Secretary of State. He became the third president of the United States. His Secretary of State was James Madison. He became president. On and on and on. So it looked like that's kind of the pattern. If you want to be president, you become Secretary of State first. It works for everybody except for Hillary Clinton. It did not work for her. So that's the deal. And that's what happened. John Quincy Adams became president. Henry Clay became the Secretary of State. And Andrew Jackson, who thought he should have won this election, who has the most votes, Andrew Jackson became pissed off. And he immediately started calling this thing the corrupt bargain, called out this under-the-table scheme that Clay and Adams had done together. And he made it his life mission to make the presidency of John Quincy Adams a living hell. And he did. He did very well at that. And so, basically, starting in 1824, campaigning for the election of 1828, creating a new party system in the United States. We're now no longer one big happy political family. We now have a second party system. The parties have split. And they're going to kind of split again until it finally settles on two parties, the Jacksonian Democrats, Jackson Democrats, and a new party that's going to show up actually in opposition to Jackson, known as the Whig Party. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in the lecture on Jackson and into the age of the Whigs. But just quickly to say that Jackson kind of powered himself. He positioned himself as a man of the people, as a man of liberty. John Quincy Adams was kind of seen as an old school Federalist, one who believed in the power of the wealthy. Jackson favored the spoil system, which we will talk about more in another PowerPoint. But basically, the spoil system is, if you support me as president, I will pay you with a government job. The Whig Party thinks that is corruption and abuse, and will largely develop in opposition to the spoil system. And so that is why the era of good feelings is going to end in 1824. The corrupt bargain, the election of 1824. Put yourself a star by the election of 1824. That's going to be a really pivotal moment in springboarding American politics, not only into the second party system, but also into the age of Jackson, which will be our next PowerPoint. So good job. Thanks for hanging with me today, and I will see you.